Well, to all intents and purposes, the Taliban has now taken control of Afghanistan as the last of the U.S. troops are leaving. There have been chaotic scenes in Kabul. People try to take the only exit out of the country. The author and journalist Hamilton Wende has covered the Afghan conflict for many years. He joins us now. Hamilton, good evening to you. Thank you for your time on the pulse. If I remember, you were in Afghanistan 20 years ago during the U.S. invasion. Did you think then that the Taliban would be able to take power back and the moment the U.S. left, take it back so quickly?
No, it's quite extraordinary. I mean, when I was in Afghanistan, I was on the last chopper from Tajikistan into the Northern Alliance base in Khujabahardin, which was right on the Tajik border. And that was a critical thing, is the Americans and the Brits and other NATO allies worked very closely with the Northern Alliance, who were highly motivated to defeat the Taliban. So they were quite successful, and they worked with the Northern Alliance. The Northern Alliance also had a small but significant base of land that the Taliban had not taken, that they could operate from, they could live in safety. And so this extraordinary taking over of the country in 9 days or something, it's quite extraordinary. I mean, I listened to President Biden some weeks ago very confidently, and even then I thought incorrectly, saying that, you know, the Afghan army would stand up. I don't understand why so many Afghan members of the Afghan National Army have just capitulated so quickly. There's a lot we can talk about. I mean, you know, Afghanistan is not a single country it's a multi-ethnic country, I should say. And the Taliban are largely Pashtun. And traditionally, when they were fighting back in the 80s and 90s, the Tajiks and the Uzbeks, who are in the northern part of the country, were very often opposed to Pashtuns taking over their areas. So how those dynamics might go in the future, I think it remains to be seen. I mean, it is a Saigon moment. I don't care what the Biden administration says. It's a humiliating, absolutely crazy Saigon moment. And what happens after that is going to be very interesting to see. The big difference between 2001, when I was there 20 years ago, when the Americans came in and started bombing and then sent in their special forces, is that where would an opposition to the Taliban be based? In Tajikistan, in Uzbekistan? It's hard to know.
Hamilton, I mean, one of the big questions is what's going to happen to ordinary people. I mean, in Kabul, women are used to now having human rights. This is going to be a burning issue. The Taliban, we know, has already, as I understand it, started closing schools. Women have been rushing home. They have to now change the way they dress. I mean, this is an incredible and terrible thing that's going to happen in that country.
Well, I think so too. The Taliban have been at pains, at least the Taliban negotiators based in Doha have been at pains to say that they're not the old Taliban, they're the new Taliban. They will respect human rights. They will work with aid organizations. They've been rather, as far as I can tell, equivocal on the notion of women's rights. And if I were an Afghan woman today, it would be terrifying. I mean, if you think about it, if you were 10 when the Taliban were defeated, you're now 30. You've lived a very significant part of your adult life as somebody who's got the right to education, the right to run a business, the right to have your hair done, your nails manicured, you know, whatever you wanted to do up to a point, you could do. If you were 20, which was also quite young, you're now 40, you're in early middle age, and suddenly your life has been turned upside down. It's absolutely devastating.
Another question, you make a really important point about the multi-ethnic nature of Afghanistan, is whether the Taliban will be able to hold on to power. I mean, this is a movement, I suppose you could say, that has huge success through invasion, through conquering. Occupation, if I can use that word, is a very different thing. Building a sustainable government, as anyone can tell you, is hard. Do you think it'll be able to hold power over the longer term?
I think there will be significant opposition emerging. I think it will be fragmented. As I said earlier, the Northern Alliance had a base in Faizabad and on the Tajik and Uzbek borders, and they were able to move freely into Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, who are regional players who are going to play a role here. I'm not an expert on Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, but they are certainly not going to stand idly by and watch the Taliban kind of destroy their economy, and they will definitely support the Tajiks and the Uzbeks who might want to fight against them. But at the moment, there's no discernible base for any kind of meaningful armed opposition to take on the Taliban. I mean, I was also with the U.S. Marines, again, 10, 11 years later in 2012. And, there were a lot of Afghans who worked with the U.S. Marines and wanted to work with the U.S. Marines and did not want the Taliban to come back. And they wanted their children to be educated and so forth. And the thing that strikes me is, in some ways, Biden has made a leadership decision. It hasn't worked out the way he wanted it to, and it is humiliating, and it is a Saigon moment, and it's devastating. But he did even when he was vice president, he was not, he said, let's get out of Afghanistan. Now, when I finished my second tour of filming, I can't say tour of duty because I was not a soldier, but filming with the U.S. Marines, they were finishing up they called it the last summer fighting season of 2012, which was supposed to allow the U.S. Marines to go into Helmand province, which was a very strongly held Taliban province, drive them back and create space for the Afghan National Army to hold their bases. That clearly didn't last, But what is interesting is Biden made a remark. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's something about, we have other regional interests to take care of. And when the Marines were packing up at Camp Leatherneck in Helmand province, they were wrapping all their weapons and bayonets and various things in what they call saran wrap, we call cling wrap. And one of the sergeants said to me, we're storing this now, we're packing this all away because we're getting ready for the next serious war, which is going to be an amphibious battle in the South China Sea. So China and America's kind of it's not a conflict, that's too strong a word, but their sort of opposition to one another is something that is in the back of Biden's mind, I'm sure, and his planners. They certainly are spinning it. They look like fools now, and Biden certainly, as much as I respect him in many other ways, has messed this one up.